Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Price. I'll be the presenter today, and today's sponsor is Sangoma, a new client of ours. They're a voice over IP manufacturer and vendor, and we're helping them get their government contract so that they can save the taxpayers some money. For our introduction, I'll ask a few questions to see if that applies to you. I'm sure we have veterans here. I know we do have from the DC area a woman-owned business today, and it was a pleasure talking with you earlier. We have probably some Native American folks, HUBZone, and if anybody doesn't know what HUBZone, obviously in the DC area, everything's always an acronym. HUBZone is historically underutilized business zone, and we can get into that in another webinar we've got coming up. And then, of course, the ever popular 8A, socioeconomic small and disadvantaged business. Are you selling to the government now? And if so, how are you selling to the government? Let me go back to my young lady I spoke to in the DC area today, and they're doing a little bit of business with the government. The problem is it's getting tougher and tougher, and the myth is you can survive in government procurement without having any type of contract vehicle. I'm going to show you the reality today. And more importantly, is what you're doing profitable? Today's agenda. Those of you who have recently either tried to enroll in SAM or update your SAM, or in the case of one of my clients on the East Coast, had let her registration expire while she was waiting, 2 days waited for GSA to award her contract, and they do that last minute check and find out that her SAM record was expired. So now we're sitting there waiting for the next 2 to 3 weeks until the folks in the SAM program office finally get her record updated. We have a complete slide and the discussion on that. I always don't mind if you ask questions during, but there will be a complete question section at the end. So it's entirely up to you how you want to handle it. We're going to talk about contract versus open market, the various contract vehicles, multiple contracts. Why do we emphasize GSA? And I'm going to throw 3 new terms at you that most people don't even know exist. And I use acronyms on purpose because the slide will be self-explanatory. And you'll be able to download the slides right from today's presentation. Don't ask me how, but when it said upload a file as a handout, so if it's available on your screen, go ahead and grab them. TDR, transactional data reporting. And rather than me try to explain that in the agenda portion, I'm going to let the slide speak for itself. And then we have the FPL, which is not Florida Power Light, and the FPT. They're exactly the same thing. When they first came out with it, they called it the FPL, Formatted Price List. Now they call it Formatted Product Tool. The only thing that's consistent about the government is its inconsistency. And everybody's heard about blockchain. Well, guess what? The government's in on it now. And most importantly, experience matters. And that's the reason that I'm here today. Let's talk about the SAM debacle. And it's a mess. We all know what SAM is. And for the record, when you get your slides today, if it's highlighted, like SAM is underlined in a different color, that's a link to take you right to SAM. Absolutely free to register and update. Even though it's a pain right now to do, they realize they made a mistake. That they had to do this because of an outfit on the East Coast that was charging people to update their SAM. And just for the record, that guy is now in jail and was ordered to repay $4.2 million in restitution. And the problem was your banking information got exposed when you let somebody have your credentials in order to go in and work your SAM file. Never. I don't do it. I refuse to do it. I'll do a screen share with you, but I will never use your credentials to log into SAM or the vendor support center at GSA. So avoid the scams, people trying to charge you. Keep it up to date. If it expires, this notice on the bottom, the alert, was copied, it's a screenshot, directly from the SAM database, the application. A notarized letter. Right now, as of Friday, they were still processing April letters. Hadn't even gotten into May yet. Still processing April. We all know what FedBizOpps is, or FBO, or Federal Business Opportunity, whatever you want to call it. It has everything for current and past solicitations. The next slide will show you a quick sample that I used for a presentation in Anaheim on voice over IP in the government. Absolutely free to register and use. Again, avoid the scams. People out there charge you $300 a month to send you bid opportunities. You can do it for free. How? It's called auto notifications. Choose your NAICS code. Now, I'm so old school after doing this for almost 33 years. I remember the original SIC codes, but they decided to add 1 or 2 digits on the end and call them North American Industrial Classification codes. SIC, NAICS, it doesn't matter. NAICS is a deeper categorization of your business. Choose your NAICS codes, click subscribe. You're going to get a lot of stuff. But here's the beauty of it. It's an excellent source for buyer information. You may not bid on anything, but you want to start developing a database of potential contacts of buyers, actual buyers, people that will hand you a credit card if you accept credit cards. We're going to talk about that also. How almost 70% of SAM registrations, those businesses do not accept credit cards, and it's mandatory to do business with the government. Imagine that. Here's a screenshot of FedBizOpps, audio-visual conference equipment. It's all voice over IP. I gave you 4 quick ones. Avaya, which is the old HP. Here's on the bottom, we want to replace our existing VoIP system for national parks. That's a nationwide contract. So those of you that are in that type of networking environment or voice over IP or any type of service provision like that, there is a wealth of information on FBO for you. We all know what SBA is. Do you have a business plan? I found a little link that's got an 8-part series on videos on walking you through what is considered an enterprise grade business plan. It's something that investor grade that you could take to an investor if you needed money. You can also go to the 7A program and then get a 7A loan through SBA. There's a link to that for you also. But how do you do business with the SBA? Click on the SBA link and you'll be able to see exactly what it takes to do business with the SBA. Now, I'm not talking about if you have a GSA contract or you don't. You can live on doing bidding. If that's where you get your joy, is that I submitted 10 bids and I won 2 and I made money, then go for it. That's fine. As long as you are providing a good service, helping people, and making a comfortable living and saving the taxpayers money, then who am I to judge? FEMA, another wonderful scam. That company got shut down also. Absolutely free to register and use, just like SAM, and avoid the scams. FEMA registration is 1 page on their site. Type it in, put your NAICS, hit it. They've now moved it over to part of Homeland Security. I don't know why. but they did. I don't judge. Another free resource. Pricing analysis. What is it? Those of you who sell products should be very, very concerned about pricing analysis. How do you know what price to charge when you submit a bid or a quote? You don't. Well, we can go to GSA Advantage and we can, spot around and look at some of the pricing. But what happens if you've got let's just say, just because they're, a dime a dozen, you've got a cell phone charger, just for grins. How many different companies manufacture it? How many different resellers sell it? There might be 1,000 different cell phone chargers on GSA Advantage. Well, can you do an analysis of all that? You can't just download the information. But we have a tool that does full competitive analysis and lets you know, for example, if you're dealing with GSA, it'll let you see the top 5 contracts of who has the product and compare it on whether you're high or low on your proposed price before you even submit, and you already know before you submit. It also helps identify bogus pricing. We found a lot of that with a client up in North Carolina. We were running them once a month, and we kept finding out that somebody, who will remain nameless, was selling a product to GSA cheaper than our cost. Well, after some investigation, we found out that he was using 8-year-old pricing and doing bait and switch. And by the way, this is the same tool that GSA is using. Theirs is far more robust based on the contractual obligation that we can't get the same type of pricing they get. So we enjoy using that tool. We've helped a lot of people. We've saved them a lot of money and made them even more. So that's our little commercial break. Then let's talk about blockchain. Everybody's familiar with Bitcoin and such. This is taken directly from GSA's blockchain page. I felt rather than me trying to rewrite it, try to explain it, the easiest way is to let them explain it to you because they're far smarter than I am. It uses encryption and coding to improve transparency. Transparency in our government? I've never heard of that before. As a Vietnam vet, we don't know what transparency is. Just go do it. Well, I think it's going to really help in the long run. And I'll probably try to get involved in the beta development team for it because it's something that interests me. And I think next we're going to find that it's going to go into so many other places. I mean, right now you're looking at financial management, procurement, go right on down the line. So hopefully it'll turn out to be something good for a change. Let's talk about the FPL FPT, Formatted Product Tool. Now, I'm going to take you way back to 1996 when a former vice president made the comment that he was going to reinvent government, and it kind of worked out. But that's when we went fully electronic on most of our contract offers, whether it be a GWAC or GSA or VA, whatever. Rather than having to get the paper, put it in the typewriter, and you know the whole routine there if you've been around long enough. They had a program that they created called SIP, Schedule Input Program. And what you had to do is you had like 7 spreadsheets. You had to copy and paste all your information into those 7 sheets with a common product ID, which was common to all of them. And then they put them all into GSA Advantage. And the next thing you know, your pricing is up on GSA Advantage. It was brutal. In fact, it was so bad, we stopped offering it as a service. Well, they came up with the FPT. It's now integrated. For those of you who have a GSA contract or are contemplating getting a GSA contract, I can explain this to you in much greater depth. It's actually integrated into eOffer and eMod, which you need a digital certificate to get into. And it's not a separate application like it used to be with SIP. There's a company that still exists. That's all they do. Well, almost all they do is SIP. Once they get you doing their SIP, I used to send all my clients to them, and they would try to do an end around and get the clients to say, look, if we're doing your SIP, why don't we start doing all your mods and everything else? They don't have the experience. I've caught them many times in making mistakes in how to negotiate a contract or a mod. And what I didn't tell all of you is that in the very beginning, in 1986, when I started the company, in 1995, when they came out with eOffer and SAM, which was called Orca at the time, and GSA Advantage and all those, I worked on the beta test teams. So we put it through its paces. We broke it, we fixed it, we broke it, and now you see what you've got today. I still don't like it. It could be better. The good news is once that price list is submitted with your offer to any bid, it becomes automatically uploaded, uploading your product and prices to GSA Advantage. And I would say that probably within a year, if not a lot sooner, I hope, it will replace the schedule input program, or as we know it affectionately, SIP. More information on that, you can go to the Vendor Support Center. TDR, Transaction Data Reporting. Now, I only highlighted what I consider to be the key points, so you don't spend all day reading a bunch of text. You can read that at your leisure when you get your slides. The key was that the continued redundancy, keyword, continued redundancy of purchasing. This is supposed to help the government learn how to buy smarter. Yes, we'll still have $300 toilet seats and $400 hammers. They serve a purpose. But at least then we may have somebody that can come in a little cheaper or whichever. So that's transaction data reporting. Teaming partners. How many of you right now are doing any kind of government work where you're teaming with another company that maybe has a contract or doesn't have a contract, or you're doing bids together, you're doing joint ventures, which are, by the way, are illegal under GSA. They're okay with regular procurements. It's the ability to offer a total solution. It's called a contractor teaming arrangement. That's a live link, by the way. Agencies like it. Bad news is, in order to be on a team, everybody has to have a contract, unless, there's always a caveat, unless is the caveat. If you're going after Oasis, some of the components of Oasis, you had to have a GSA contract to be able to participate. That seems to be more the norm now than the exception, but on a regular, flat, non-media oriented, if you will, procurement, it doesn't matter if you're on a contract or not. Every vendor that's on that team has to get vetted by themselves. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it provides tremendous cost savings to the government. If you want to know more information about that, we've got frequently asked questions on our website to get into it much deeper. Credit cards. This is my favorite. And when I found what I'm going to show you in the next slide, you're going to say, how did that work? Credit cards are required for micro purchase threshold. Now, the threshold is just changing almost daily. I remember in the beginning it was $22,000, then it was $2,500, then it was $3,000, then it was $3,500. Now I believe it's up around $100. Don't think about what you're thinking about trying to do. If you don't have a contract vehicle and you believe that you can survive on micro purchases, you can't. You'll go for a while, but eventually your gravy train will crash because it violates the Competition and Contracting Act, or the acronym, again, here we are, SICA. Buyers are supposed to combine their purchase requirements, not fragment them. So let's go back to the $3,000 threshold we had before. If I need $30,000 in products and you've got them and you can provide them to me right away, so I'll continue giving you $3,000 orders, about one every other day, until we hit 30,000. I get what I want and you get the business. Well, guess what? When the auditor comes in and sees, why did you give Susie Cream Cheese 10 orders at $3,000 each rather than making it one $30,000 purchase and putting it out for bid? Someone's going to have a hard time explaining why they did that. It's another end around for what we all used to call sole source. Can't do it. So micro purchase is wonderful for quick and dirty one time, and at 100 grand, I'll take one or two of those a year, especially if it's a high profit. But the fact, on credit cards, almost 70% of you do not accept credit cards. It's required. I don't know how you're getting around it. There are so many people that I talk to every day, emailing back and forth, that just don't have a clue on why they're on SAM. And those of you forget who SAM is, even though you do your own registrations, I hope you don't pay anybody. System for Award Management. And it's still evolving. They're trying to get better at it. Eventually they'll get it all right. This is the first credit card, ladies and gentlemen. Circa 1959 by IBM. Who else? The black stuff, that's magnetic tape. The dark brown would be Scotch tape. And that's how you used to use credit cards. The question is, what's on the magnetic tape that we don't know about? And you had to have an IBM machine to be able to read it. And I have no idea how you did a transaction. All I know is that I carry a card in my pocket and I never use it because I just let my phone do its charging. There's your first credit card. What's your next steps? We're getting near the end, actually. We're going to be done very early, and I'll take the time for whatever questions that you all have. Make sure your SAM is up to date and that you have the appropriate NAICS codes. That's so important. I worked with a client in North Carolina over the last 2 years, and she had every NAICS code imaginable. I think she just copied the whole table and threw it in there. And when it all came down to it, GSA contracting officer said, "You're missing the one I want. You can take all the rest out. This is the only one you need." So it pays to do some research. Monitor and subscribe to FBO or FedBizOpps, your choice, whatever you want to call it. Capture all that information and make sure they know who you are. How many of you have a capability statement? Probably not a lot. We can help you with that. We have a partner firm that we work with that can turn a capability statement around in less than 2 days. A lot of times, if she's not busy, in a day. She also does deep dives on competitive analysis to actually show you who in the government is buying what you're selling, including name, address, city, state, zip, phone, fax, email, whatever you need, and can probably even tell you how much they've bought already. So make sure you capture all that buyer information. It's gold. They may not buy from you now, but they're always there. And if they know who you are, which is our next bullet, make sure they know who you are. Send them an email. Do not send a capability statement or any attachment in your email to a government buyer. Do I need to repeat that? No. Ask permission to send them your capability statement in the next email. They'll respond. Now you have confirmation on their contact info, and you now have permission to send them your PDF version of your capability statement. Please do not make that mistake of rudely just sending an attachment. And I'm sure you get them in the email all the time. You know, who would send you a Word document? You know, at least send me something that's protected so it can't be changed. I mean, I see it all the time, and it's rude, and I just delete them. Thank you for attending. And that's our contact info. You'll have this when you download your slides. And I assume there's a download link there somewhere on the audience view. I'll check that in a moment. I'll entertain any questions you all may have. Let's see what we got here. I know I didn't do that good a job, and I know that everybody's awake. And oh, here we are. Let me see what I got here. What's the market for soft products like marketing, capabilities, communications? I'm trying to see, is that the asker is, who is that? Oh, Julie. The market is tremendous, Julie. And you got under a couple different ones. You've got promotional products under Schedule 81 for GSA. You've also got what's called FABs, financial and business services, which is where your marketing, your web design, things like that. I'm assuming that that's the type of soft product that you're talking about. If you're talking about in communications for subscription based, that might come in under Group 70. But I think your first two places are going to be 81 under GSA, and just look under FSC 81 on FedBizOpps and see what's out there. And the other one is 520 would be your FABs. Again, another acronym. All right, the next one from Greg. Let me get this up here, Greg, see what we got. When bidding out a contract, if awarded, how do you let them know if the factory will take 90 to 120 days to get things back in stock? All right, we are talking about what kind of contract. And these types of things happen all the time. I mean, it seems like everything I buy nowadays is out of stock and only one left. Order now and avoid the Christmas rush. Things like that. So you have in government procurement 5 days to accept or reject an order. Now, if you're on, and that's on, I know that's on, definitely on GSA, the question becomes on a regular GWAC, you should have some sort of supply. It used to be a requirement years ago under GSA that you had to stock whatever you were selling the government. That requirement's gone away now. So the important thing with anything with a government buyer is communication. If you get an order for 1,000 widgets and you got 2 in stock and you know it's going to be 90 days, number one, find some place to get it. Number two, you can reject the order or communicate with the buyer and say, what is your time frame? Now, here it is May. If we're getting into June, July, and you get hit with a 60 or 90 day delay, you're now impacting the government's budget or fear of loss of the government's budget. Because after September 30th, if it's not spent, they lose it and it's deducted from next year's budget. So from that aspect, it's very important that you always maintain communication with the contracting officer or buyer, whoever it is. All right. You've covered many different, Greg, I hope that answered your question. It's really, the only way to really find out if it's going to impact you is to talk with the buyer. All right, I covered many different areas. Yep. Should we go after all at the same time or focus on one area for marketing? Well, first of all, the whole thing with, you're not really going after anything. What you're doing is you're setting yourself up so that you have a good, background and understanding of exactly what the government's looking for. Excuse me. So I tell everybody, number one, make sure your SAM is updated. That's the most important thing. Then your next step would be to look at FedBizOpps, FBO. Start finding out what's out there. See if you can comply with, the product or service or whatever you happen to do. And, even if you don't bid, at least kind of go through the motions and find out, educate yourself is really the easiest way to say it. Educate yourself. And as far as GSA, if you want, and I'm going to use the word very, very carefully, guaranteed contract, because GSA really isn't a proposal and a bid. It's an application. And that's what I've been calling it for years, because you're not bidding against anybody. It's not you or you or me or you or him or, whoever. You're going to get a contract if you have good commercial practices. You will get a contract. A 5-year contract with 3 5-year renewals. You just have to do $25,000 in the first 2 years, which, if you're, looking at the right products, I had one guy, got him a contract, his first order was $700,000. I guess he kind of hit his quota. So it's not that hard to be successful in GSA. My suggestion would be take a look at it, but look at FedBizOpps and see what's out there. But not everything goes to FBO, because if it's under the micro purchase threshold, they don't have to advertise it. It used to be anything over 25,000 had to be advertised. It doesn't have to be advertised anymore. Does that answer your question? Hopefully. What else have I got here? Greg's back for promotional advertising. That's, by the way, those of you who have a QR code reader, go ahead and scan that and it'll get you contact info, which is also 2 slides back. So it's your call. Greg, promotional is probably, they've cut back a little bit because of all the alleged boondoggles. We all know about that GSA boondoggle. Guess what? I was there when it supposedly happened. It didn't happen. It was at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas about 4 or 5 years ago. I happened to be there presenting. And yeah, we had a lot of time off, but they weren't going crazy spending money and all. So promotional advertising, I still have VA mouse pads that I got years ago. And I've got 2 of them I've never even used because they kind of look good just kind of sitting here. But that is a very, very lucrative area to make a lot of money. And yes, because of where your products are coming from, you could have a 90 to 120 day lag. The key is to be able to try to get on top of that lag, and you're going to have to stock some stuff because you're probably going to do the engraving and the embroidery and all that yourself and the printing, unless you're having whoever's doing it, wherever they are, do it for you. And that's really what slows it down. And it's really kind of hard to pinpoint exactly how you get around that and how you beat that one. So I would suggest maybe take a look at the Schedule 81 or 78, I'm sorry, not 81, 78 is, it's the acronym again, sports. It's promotional items and sports products and everything else. They just kind of threw a bunch of stuff together, but that's where you'll find, and take a look at the terms and conditions on what they're looking for delivery time. And it's based always on your commercial, what you do for the commercial. All right, I don't know who asked this, but I'll address it anyway. Could you re-explain what you said about everyone having to have a contract to participate in GSA? No, I didn't say that. I said most of the major procurements require all of the team members to have a GSA contract that lasts for a year or 2 years, whatever. And the reason they do that, they know you're already vetted. So even if you, and I had a client in 1996, 97, who had a GSA contract. He was an 8A computer manufacturer, the first one in the world. He never sold a thing on GSA, but he was doing 8A contracts, and he was selling, this first year, we sold $12.5 million of PCs to NASA Goddard and Department of Energy in Las Vegas. And we didn't have the old, well, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your contract. He eventually started selling a bunch of stuff off his contract. So it was quite interesting to see how it worked. And I started what was called cyberjacking. We had the yellow newspaper, Commerce Business Daily, if any of you have been around long enough to remember that. And you hold it up to the light and you could read both sides. And I would actually call the contracting officers for him. And I'd say, why are you putting out a bid for 5 PCs? I've got an 8A computer manufacturer sitting next to me that can deliver them today. She said, hold on. So I just canceled it. Okay, what am I going to pay for these? And that's how we started cyberjacking through the Commerce Business Daily, which is now called FedBizOpps. Amazing how it all kind of comes around in a circle. Any other questions, folks? I got to have one more, I'm sure. For orders above $20,000, does the government pay 20 to 50% upfront? Excellent, excellent question. Thank you. I'm going to start incorporating that. Years ago, the government was never allowed to prepay anything. And let me give you a better explanation. I just bought Microsoft Word and I want to buy maintenance. And maintenance is $1 a month. But you have to pay for it for the year, so that would be $12. The government could not pay the $12. You had to bill them $1 a month for as long as they wanted the maintenance. Now, with the advent of credit cards, they just buy it, and even more so if it's bought through GSA Advantage, it's paid for before they even press the submit button. Now, I don't know where the 20,000 came from, but there is no requirement that, whether 20 to 50% upfront or whatever, depending upon what it is and depending upon your relationship with the buyer. Then if it's an ongoing services, that's different. You get task order billing. If they're buying a product, they'll pay it right up front because it's done. Paid for, they own it. You just haven't shipped it. Any other questions, folks? This has been as they say, the funnest part of questions and answers I've had in a long time. Excellent question on that, prepayment. The government is now allowed to prepay. If there's no other questions, I will bid you adieu, and this video will be on our website as soon as we get it edited down. And if you haven't already, I have no idea how you do it, but I know that there's it's called a handout, and I know you're supposed to be able to click on it and download today's slides. So hopefully all of you have done that. There's a lot of you here, and I'll wait about a minute and let you do your thing. If not, if you didn't give us a bogus email address, I will send out a link so that you can download it right out of your email if you want. Thank you so much for your time, ladies and gentlemen, and hope to see you soon. I'm going to try to have another webinar within about 2 weeks.